Secretary of State Antony Blinken condemns Houthi intrusion of U.S. Embassy in Sana'a. The Yemeni Prime Minister Ma'in Abdul Malik discusses with French Ambassador in Aden the current situation. United States Secretary of Defense calls on Houthis to end the war. Good evening and welcome to Yemen Today TV. This is the English news with me, Roshan Fouad. The United States said Houthis' detention of local embassy staff in Sana'a contrasts the rebels' claims of peace and is a flagrant violation to all international diplomatic conventions. This comes in a statement released by U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, who condemned Houthis' detention and mistreatment of dozens of Yemeni citizens and their family members simply because they have worked for the United States in Sana'a. Blinken said that Houthis' unprovoked abuse of these Yemeni citizens is a gross disregard of diplomatic norms, stressing that these actions are an affront to the entire international community. He called on Houthis to immediately release Yemeni staff of the United States and vacate the embassy compound. To that end, the U.S. envoy to Yemen, Tim Lenderking, and Charge d'Affaires, Kathy Wesley, said that they are working closely to ensure the staff release of all employees detained by Houthis and Houthis' instant evacuation from the U.S. compound. This came in a statement where Lenderking condemned in the strongest terms Houthi detention of U.S. local staff and U.S. embassy breach by Houthis. On her part, Wesley said that it is now her number one priority to ensure the immediate release of all local staff detained in Yemen and regain control of the compound, stressing that the U.S. remains committed to a lasting political solution to the conflict in Yemen. Likewise, the United Kingdom condemned Houthis' intrusion into the U.S. Embassy in Sana'a. In a press release, the UK government called for immediate return of U.S. staff to their families and for an end to the restrictions on movement of embassy staff, urging Houthis to withdraw immediately from the premises and to return all seized property. In Aden, Prime Minister Dr. Ma'in Abdul Malik met the Ambassador of France to Yemen, Jean-Marie Safa, to discuss necessary and urgent areas of support to the Yemeni government. The meeting discussed developments on the Yemeni arena, especially the continuation of Houthi military escalation and international efforts to stop crimes and violations against civilians and the displaced, also condemning Houthi militias' intrusion of the U.S. Embassy compound in Sana'a and the arrest of a number of local employees. Turning to Bahrain, the Army Chief of Staff Lieutenant General Saghir Hamoud bin Aziz stressed the importance of American support for Yemeni Coast Guard in order to combat terrorism and arms smuggling to the militia and its efforts to bring lasting peace to our country. The Chief of Staff discussed during his meeting with the Commander of the Central American Naval Forces, Admiral Brad Cooper, military and combat situations to defeat Houthi militias in Yemen. For his part, Cooper affirmed his country's continued support for Yemeni people and armed forces in the battle to restore the state and secure Yemen, the region, and international shipping routes. Still in Bahrain, U.S. Defense Secretary Austin Lloyd called on the Iran-backed Houthi militia to end its war in Yemen. This came in a speech at the Manama Security Dialogue Forum. The U.S. Secretary stressed that Iran is the primary cause of instability in the region, and the United States will work to enhance information sharing and help partners to confront the dangers of Iran and its proxies. The U.S. Defense Secretary stressed that the United States will work to support freedom of navigation in the region and to deter any attacks on navigation in the Middle East, and that fighting terrorism and protecting shipping lanes are among his government security priorities. Minister of Information Muammar al-Eryani called on the international community, UN and US envoys, to label the militia as a terrorist organization. El-Eryani said that the international community must put an end to Houthis' mass killings of children and prosecute Houthi militia leaders as war criminals. Turning to Ma'rib, government forces defeated Houthi militia and inflicted heavy losses among them. According to sources, government forces backed by resistance and coalition aircrafts engaged in violent clashes to defeat the rebels. Sources added that the artillery targeted separate movements and locations of the militia along the fighting fronts, west and south of Ma'rib, confirming the killing and wounding of dozens of them. Government forces in Ma'rib have been defending the city and inflicting considerable losses on Houthi rebels. The fighting is intense in fronts of El Amoud and Ya'ra. More details on the field developments of those fronts are within this report.
Clashes are getting fiercer in Ma'rib's southern fronts. Government forces inflicted Houthi militia with heavy losses in the vicinity of Ma'rib, where Battlefront strains its fighters. In Ya'ra front, militia fighters tried to penetrate into the position of the government forces and tribes. Fierce battles erupted, and government forces defeated Houthi militia and about 25 militants were killed. 3 attempts carried out by Houthi militia in the Dana and Al Amoud fronts. These areas are considered one of the most strategic areas in which the Houthi militia has been desperate to reach. The government forces backed by tribes inflict heavy losses on them. Coalition fighter jets also target militia gatherings and equipment.
We assure everyone that we will win. These events do not represent the positions of the National Army. I say it publicly. Houthi militia were able to make breakthroughs in separate places and push groups, but they became exposed. We fought Houthis for 7 years. Soon you will see the battles far from here targeting places in Al-Bayda. I'm responsible for my words. We know who the Houthis are and they know who we are.
The Irani-backed militia's losses were not limited to battles in the field. Airstrikes and artillery bombardment crushed the militia's reinforcements, destroyed 6 crews, a PMP vehicle, 3 barracks where the militia members were stationed, and the mountain chain linking El Amoud and Dana France. Battles ended with capturing a group of Houthi elements after being besieged by government forces.
I'm from Hajjah Governorate and I'm a prisoner. I was arrested in Al Juba and I was fighting with Houthis. I advise those who fight with Houthis to withdraw and not to fight with them because they have neglected the fighters. Our losses in Al Juba are many. Hundreds of us have been died. We suffered heavy losses.
Today, Houthi militia's attack was thwarted. It was a violent attack, but it was broken and they suffered a number of losses, and dozens of their members were captured.
Government forces are fighting here, knowing that the battle south of Ma'rib will determine the fate of the Republic. They will not accept anything but victory and the restoration of the homeland from the grip of the militia terrorism.
Despite Houthis' considerable losses in Ma'rib, they rarely admit losses. Recently, Houthis, in an expected move, unveiled the number of their victims killed in Ma'rib front. But this came only after international reports have revealed that how immense is the rebels' losses. More on this story is within this report.
Despite the discretion, Houthis' losses in war fronts are huge. 14,700 Houthi deaths on the Ma'rib front, only since the middle of this year. A figure obtained by AFP from military sources affiliated with the Houthi militia, which reflects its disregard for the lives of Yemenis and making them sacrifice to reach its racist goals and to serve Iran's rebellious agenda in the region. Despite the international and regional initiatives and proposals aimed at ending the conflict and stopping the Houthi violence, Houthis refuse to end this violence and insist on continuing the escalation in Ma'rib since last February and its rejection of calls to stop the attack on Ma'rib, which houses 2 million displaced people, confirms that it is for the sake of its narrow interests, throwing tens of thousands of fighters to destruction. Military sources in turn confirmed that the death toll of the Houthi militia in Ma'rib since the beginning of last year, 2020, has exceeded 27,000, which holds the militia responsible for confiscating the lives of a huge number of deceived by raising false slogans, while death is only for Yemenis. Worse than all of that is training children and new recruits with a culture of violence and hatred, and infusing their minds with extremist ideas, which means that an entire generation is being prepared for future holocausts and war. Observers confirm that breaking the Houthi militia does not represent a victory for the national forces opposed to it, but also for its followers who are deceived by its false ideas, and finally to appear rifled before they return to their families in coffins.
Turning to Hodeidah, local and security authorities visited areas that were liberated and secured by the joint forces in Hais. Authorities' visit is to see suffering of people who were deprived of their most basic rights by the Houthi militia. They called on local and international humanitarian organizations to help people living in these remote areas under difficult humanitarian conditions.
We salute all members of the joint forces for their victories against Houthi militias. Today, we visited Dhami, areas of Wadi Nakhla, and all the way to Al Udain line. We visited Hais Security Administration. We met Director of Hais Security. We were accompanied by Sheikh Nasser Zaid and Mutahhar al-Qadi. We are happy. Hais is 90% liberated from Houthi militia. From here, Battle of Triumph will start to Eb, Ta'az and Hodeidah.
Still in Hodeidah, the joint forces continue their advance and took control of Al Udain Triangle north of Hais. A military source said that the joint forces managed to control the strategic Al Udain Triangle, which links Hais with Ib and Al Jarrahi. The source confirmed that joint forces fought violent battles against Houthi militia, in which dozens of militants were killed and wounded and others captured. The Joint Forces engineering team began clearing the recent liberated areas in Hais from mines and war remnants planted by the rebels. A source said that the engineering team is working closely to secure liberated areas and clear them of mines. The source confirmed that the unit was able to demine large quantities of mines and explosive devices, all have been planted by the Houthi rebels. Masan project confirmed that it demined and destroyed more than 289,000 mines planted by Houthi militia from July 2018 to November 2021. Osama al-Qusaybi, director of the Masan project, said that the project has been operating in Yemen for the fourth year in a row, stressing that the project managed during the period from mid-July 2018 to November 2021 to remove and destroy 97,187 anti-vehicle mines and 4,183 anti-personnel mines, as well as removal of 181,562 explosive munitions and 6,114 explosive devices. After receiving strong blows in Hais and with the advancement of joint forces near to Ib and Ta'az, Houthi militia raised the alert status and called for the mobilization of militants from northwest of Al-Dala. Local sources said that Houthi militia declared a state of alert in the areas under its control, in Qa'taba and El-Hasha, confirming that Houthi leaders met with tribal figures and stressed on the mobilization of fighters and pushing them to fronts of Al-Dala. Coming next. Phenomenon of kidnapping girls has become a nightmare for families in Sana'a.
اضطرينا نغادر من ذي وزحنا.
الله يستنقذكم يا محويتني الله يستنقذ.
Welcome back. Kidnapping girls has increased in the Houthi-controlled areas, especially in Sana'a. Innocent girls suddenly disappear from streets while they are doing their daily life errands. More details on this story are within this report.
Women in Yemen pay the highest price for the ugly war in the country, as the Houthi militia keep kidnapping Yemeni women. A couple of weeks ago in Sana'a, there was a recorded disappearance of a number of girls of different ages, including female students, in conjunction with the high crime rates in the areas under the control of the Houthi militia. Sources revealed that one of the recent Houthi crime was the kidnapping of a girl student while she was returning home from her school near Taz. The incident comes a few days after the child Marwa was kidnapped while returning from her school in the neighborhood in Sana'a. This is the fourth case of woman kidnappings in Sana'a since last October, while the number of girls who have recently been hidden in the same way has exceeded 13 girls so far. Residents of Sana'a complained about the high rates of kidnapping among girls in their areas and pointed out the crimes of this kind have recently expanded remarkably in areas, neighborhoods, and streets of the capital in light of the control of the Houthi rebels. The people in Yemen believe that the reasons behind the disappearance of women in Sana'a and other cities under Houthi control is with the aim of putting pressure on Yemeni citizens or for the purpose of recruiting kidnapped people to fight or to blackmail the children's families and force them to pay a ransom in exchange for their release. Human rights organizations had called for a rapid investigation into the crimes of abduction of children and women in Sana'a. These Houthi crimes are considered dangerous cases that affects everyone in Yemen and seriously offends families of the kidnapped victims.
The European Union mission in Yemen said that the conflict has placed a heavy burden on Yemeni children. The mission said in a tweet on the occasion of World Children's Day, 7 years of conflict in Yemen have put a heavy burden on children, including access to primary health care services. The mission added that the European Union and UNICEF is working to provide primary medical care services for children and their mothers in Yemen, in light of the deterioration of the health situation in the country. Today, Saturday, countries commemorate the International Day of the Child, at a time when the children of Yemen are suffering from extremely difficult humanitarian conditions, the worst in the country's history. High transportation forces have become a burden on people, especially university students. This has led to students giving up going to classes and professors as well. The following report has more on this.
Osama Al-Akash is a student in the Department of Media, College of Arts, Taiz University. He starts early in the morning his hard journey that takes more than 2 hours a day back and forth to reach the university. He has no problem in the time factor as far as the cost of the transportation, which is the most important problem for Osama and thousands of university students, especially rural students whose suffering is renewed as the transportation costs are so high.
Currently, a large number of students and I who come to university have spent more than 4,000 riyals for transportation. This is besides other educational materials. High prices and high transportation fares become a hard burden on the university students.
The continued rise in the value of transportation constitutes a great concern for university students, which prompted young activists to launch an electronic campaign bearing the hashtag #OnYourWay, calling on vehicle owners to deliver students back and forth to and from the university. The campaign received a great response from owners of transportation means of all kinds.
We want to widen this initiative to become a part of culture. If you have someone in your way, give him a ride. If you own a car, you can take students with you.
Students are not the only ones who suffer from the continued rise in the value of transportation. Even government employees were not immune to this rise, which swallows a large part of the salary, as the employees lost 60% of the value of the monthly salary in light of the continuous collapse of the national currency against foreign currencies.
Transportation fares become high and there is a chaos. This burdened the student and the employee who is to come to the university. Authorities have to take an action to ease the situation.
Urgent solutions by the official authorities are required in curbing the rise in the prices of oil derivatives and their negative impact on all aspects of life. Silence is an effective participation in aggravating the situation.
The National Committee Against Coronavirus announced 1 new case of COVID-19 in Aden. Also, 3 deaths were recorded plus 2 recovered cases. With the current updates, the total confirmed cases are 9,955, including 1,938 deaths and 6,740 cases of recovery. Here is a reminder of the main headlines. Secretary of State Antony Blinken condemns Houthi intrusion of U.S. Embassy in Sana'a. The Yemeni Prime Minister Ma'in Abdel Malik discusses with French Ambassador in Aden the current situation. United States Secretary of Defense calls on Houthis to end the war. This brings us to the end of the news. It was Roshan Fouad. Thank you for watching.